This is a production of PBS Charlotte.
This week on Off the Record, whether you call it the novel coronavirus or COVID-19, the pandemic is here and affecting every aspect of our lives. There's a stay-at-home order for Mecklenburg County and more are expected in the region. The shutdown is tough for many, especially for those in nursing homes. Healthcare workers are concerned about the shortage of medical supplies. How does the new normal affect businesses and what are we already seeing at the airport? We'll talk about those issues and more next on Off the Record right here on PBS Charlotte. Hi, I'm Suzette Ree, and for Jeff Sonyer, this is Off the Record, where we talk about the stories you've been talking about this week. And if you have questions or comments, please send them to us at offtherecord@WTVI.org. Now, we are doing the show today, but we are practicing social distancing, which means we will join each guest virtually and safely. First up, we have Dedrick Russell from WBTV. Dedrick, thank you so much for joining us. And let's just get to it. One of the stories that I saw this week was that you went to nursing homes and saw firsthand how families are being kept from their loved ones because of the new order.
Yeah, this is such a sad story. I talked to a woman whose mother is in her 80s and she's battling Alzheimer's, and she is used to seeing her mother, almost on a daily basis. But then with this pandemic, the nursing home, the nursing facility said that no more outside visitors because they want to keep people safe. So, of course, this is very emotional for that daughter. She told me that she usually goes and spends the nights with her mom because her mom has a tough time, at nighttime. And so therefore she can no longer do that. So therefore she understands all of this, but now this is just the new normal that she has to go through. And what she's trying to do is that she's able to do her mom's laundry. So she comes there, once a week, and she picks up her mom's laundry and she does her mom's laundry, and then she takes her laundry back. She puts inside the laundry something, a care package, so to speak. She puts some goodies in there for her mom. She sends flowers back and sends little notes back for her mom. So she's trying to deal with this. And so I asked, what is she telling her mother? What is her message to her mom so she can understand why she's not seeing her children on a daily basis? And so she says, I tell my mother that Mom, there's some bad germs out there, and we don't want you to get those bad germs, so you're not going to see us for a while. And so she told me that her mom said, oh, okay then. And then she told me that her mom told her the other day, hey, when are those germs going to go away? And so we hope those germs go away sooner rather than later. But it's tough for families, but they know that this is the new normal. So they're just trying to figure out, technology and the phone, but there's nothing like that physical touch, seeing your loved one and touching your loved one and hugging your loved one.
And often the people in nursing homes, it's not as if you can connect with them virtually or even over the phone. Many of them are in situations where they're not accessible that way.
Yeah, exactly. And so, what do? You just have to make the best of it and try to figure this out while we go through these terrible times. But, when I was talking to the daughter, she said that she even one day she sent like pizza to the staff, to the workers who are, dealing with her mom because they are going through as well. So she wants to make sure that the staff, that the families are appreciative of what the staff is doing to try to take care of her mom during this terrible situation.
Absolutely. Now, I also saw that you talked to working families who have their own complications. A lot of the lessons and the impact of the new mandate is that we're all learning in real time how to cope, how to deal with it, how to obey. But at the same time, for some working families who are caught in transitional housing, temporary housing, I know that you talked to families who have struggled with that this week.
Yeah, exactly. These are families who cannot afford housing in the Charlotte area. So therefore, they're in between a rock and a hard place. So they are living inside of hotel motels in order to have a roof over top of their heads. And so they were being evicted because they got laid off. And so therefore, since they got laid off, that means no paycheck. And when you have no paycheck, that means that you have no rent. So therefore, Crisis Assistance Ministry, Mecklenburg County government, United Way, and Foundation for the Carolinas, they all partnered together in order to raise funds to keep these families inside their hotel motel. And we're talking about nearly 600 families who have been identified thus far. And we're talking about like $300 a week, average $300 a week to keep those families to pay their rent. And so therefore monies were raised, and we're talking about $200,000. And so when I talked to Crisis Assistance Ministry, I asked, well, what happens the week after next, and the week after next, and the week after next? And Crisis Assistance Ministry said that they're working with the funders, and they are optimistic that something will happen, that the money will keep going in order to keep a roof over top of those families' heads. And also one interesting thing, we know that the judges have stopped evictions during this time. And so therefore, since there are families who live in hotel motels on a daily basis, they're trying to figure out, is the law on those families' side as well, that they can be spared from eviction since they claim a hotel motel as their place of residence.
Right. Now, other issues that we've all looked at, watched, and kept up with is education. And Dedrick, you are one of the veterans of the educational field coverage in Charlotte. What are you seeing with the impact to students, the community? I know that you've talked to all the people involved.
Yeah, well, the number one thing is that parents are saying teachers deserve $1 billion for what they have to do, because now these parents are seeing firsthand what teachers have to go through on a daily basis, how teachers have to engage their kids, how teachers have to bring order and control. So therefore, parents now are having to be the teachers, and therefore, they're saying that it's not as easy as people would think it would be. So therefore, CMS, we're talking about almost 150,000 students where CMS is trying to give some instructional learning online, and parents have to do their best. Some teachers now are trying to connect with their students on a weekly basis to check in with them to see how they are doing. And the thing is, these won't be graded, because because what we're finding out is that there's still a digital divide, that just because I have internet and Wi-Fi doesn't mean my next door neighbor has that internet or Wi-Fi. And so therefore there is a digital divide, and there's a struggle there. And I talked to some people, one parent who is concerned that those kids who are already struggling, those kids who are already behind, that this e-learning is going to put them further behind, because they don't have that one-on-one connection with the teacher that they need in order to be successful. So I talked to CMS, and CMS got some money. Some people like David Tepper has chipped in, and other foundations chipped in $1 million in order to provide 6,000 mobile hotspots. So those 6,000 mobile hotspots can be given out to those families who are in need, so they can continue that instruction, because school is going to be out until like May 15th. So that's a lot of lost learning instruction if parents don't do what they're supposed to do and try to make sure that their kids are on the up and up when it comes to the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s.
Absolutely. Dedrick, I miss seeing you in the studio, but as always, we appreciate your insight and your input. Be safe, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Next, we have Mark Becker from WSOC-TV. Mark, thanks so much for being here. First of all, it's been 24 hours since the stay-at-home mandate. How's it going so far?
Well, first day, right. We're all sort of adjusting to this. And I was out on Thursday really looking at people out and about and those who weren't. And yes, there were fewer people out than I think the day before, certainly than the week before. But it's not like the city and the community are shutting down. What you find is that there are a lot of what are called essential workers who are going to work and doing what it is they have always done. We found construction workers, for example, out on the job, a lot of construction workers, probably more of them than any other single group. But we stopped and talked with a guy at an auto repair shop, and he was in doing some work. Yes, business is off, but he is open. Restaurants, of course, we stopped in at one where the owner had essentially stepped in and become the chief cook, bottle washer, everything, because he can only afford to keep a few people on the payroll at the moment while they're doing takeout orders. But there were barbershops that were closed. There were other stores that were closed. There were a lot of places that had been open just 2 or 3 days ago and now aren't, right? And at the same time, we saw people out walking. We saw people out jogging, exercising, and I think everybody needs to have that ability to get out. So that, of course, is allowed under the stay-at-home order. You can get out and exercise, keep your distance from folks. And by and large, I think people in the community are respecting that, understanding that, and going with it. And this is the police department's purview to oversee, are people doing what they should be doing? And technically they can charge you with a violation. Now they say unless something escalates, they're not going to arrest anybody, right? They're going to write essentially what would be a ticket, a warning perhaps, a citation. But I did touch base with the police at the end of the day, and they said, look, we've gotten what they call tremendous cooperation from people, and had not had to write anything by way of a citation or ticket. So
well, that's great.
I think people are getting it. Yeah.
Yes, right. Now, to that point, there is that criminality element of all this in terms of mandates. As you said, police here can give citations. The Department of Justice actually said that if they see actions that are dangerous, that they are prepared to charge people with terrorism.
Yeah, and I think there's there's an old principle in law, and I'm not a lawyer and I don't play one on TV, but I did take a media law course years ago and have been around courts enough. There is a classic case where one of the justices used the example, you cannot scream fire in a crowded theater. That would not be an exercise of free speech, that would be a crime. And I think that's exactly what the Justice Department and others now are looking at, is you can't, for example, go into a Walmart like a man did in Albemarle last week, allegedly, get on Facebook Live and claim to have coronavirus just to see the reaction of people around you. They actually charged that man in Albemarle. I can't tell you exactly what the charge was, but there is a charge in the statutes here in North Carolina that allows for that to happen. And the federal agents, of course, have an even bigger scale. Now, we have heard, and I have read, and perhaps you have as well, about white supremacist groups allegedly sort of looking at this as an opportunity. If and when some of them were to be infected, for example, they would go into minority communities or just anywhere and spit on things, deliberately spread their germs as to spread the virus. The federal agents are looking at that. They're watching for that. And they're listening to all that deep, dark internet stuff that's talking about that. And yeah, they will clamp down.
Yes, I mean, that's what I've read shows that they would look at this as terrorism. Now, beyond that element, I know you've been out busy all this week, and I've also seen that you've talked to healthcare workers here who are concerned about medical supplies.
Yeah, medical supplies and protocols. Talked not on camera, but just talked with a couple of people off the record, as it were, who are nurses in hospitals, and they're concerned. They say doctors had been covered from head to toe, while nurses really, in some cases, weren't, and that visitors were still getting into hospitals maybe when they shouldn't, and the hospitals have clamped down on visitation, except in certain circumstances. So yeah, they're right out there. They're on that front line. And I read where a New York hospital nurse just died from the coronavirus. So the fear is real. The threat is real. And at the same time, I did speak with the chief clinical officer from Novant, who said, look, we are doing what we can to keep our people safe. We have what we need right now, we think, in terms of supplies. But if and when things get worse and the numbers continue to go up here in Mecklenburg County, there could be a problem. So they are always looking for more supplies, more equipment, and that kind of thing.
Mark Becker, we always enjoy your insights, appreciate them. I miss you in the studio, but we will see you soon. Thank you so much.
We will be back. Thank you, Suzanne.
Next, we have Eli Portillo of the Charlotte Urban Institute. Eli, thanks so much for joining us this way. We really appreciate it. Let's get right off. Absolutely. Let's start off with the airport and the news being generated. We have, over the years, definitely have heard the airport is sort of the heart of the economic engine for the area. You've done some stories and compared the impact of that organization as an employer to the region.
Yes, people, I think, tend to think about the banking industry and financial services in Charlotte as, the big economic driver, but really the airport plays a huge role. It's the sixth busiest airport in the world by takeoffs and landings, really disproportionately large for a city of Charlotte's size. More than 700 daily flights, and that's all driven by American Airlines, which accounts for more than 90% of the flights here. Their airlines, of course, have been really devastated by the coronavirus impacts, and American, along with others, has been trimming flight schedules, trying to figure out what to do in a world where demand has really collapsed unprecedentedly.
Absolutely. And in terms of the reach of the airport to the region, I mean, a great majority of those folks do work here in Mecklenburg County, but I saw the reach of the map and it's quite broad. Yes,
there are more than 13,000 aviation workers, of course, heavily concentrated in Mecklenburg County at the airport. But we looked at the Urban Institute at where those workers live. And although a majority of them live in Charlotte and Mecklenburg County, they really are all throughout the region, throughout the entire 14-county region surrounding Charlotte in North and South Carolina. There are aviation workers in all of them. And that includes people like pilots, flight attendants, mechanics, gate and reservation agents. And these tend to be jobs that have very high median salaries, more than $95,000. And a lot of them are all of a sudden imperiled because of this really, it's a word we keep using, but it's true, unprecedented, rapid, and near total collapse of demand for air travel.
Well, and because of what's happening at that organization as well as others, we are seeing unprecedented numbers of people filing for unemployment. Your thoughts about that?
Well, we've used it 3 times already, but I think the word unprecedented is warranted again. We saw 3.3 million jobless, unemployment insurance claims this week. I believe the previous high number nationally was 695,000 in a week. So this really blew those out of the water. And a large part of that is because we've had entire sectors of the economy shut down. Retailers from South Park Mall to a lot of individual stores have either completely shut down or gone to online only. Restaurants are shut down. Gyms, bars, salons, big sectors. We looked at the Urban Institute at how many workers are employed in some of these sectors. And food service workers, that accounts for more than 100,000 jobs in the Charlotte region, almost 8% of all workers. And retail workers, another sector that's just been hit really hard, that is about 9% of the region's workforce. So you're talking, whole really big chunks of the workforce basically either furloughed or temporarily laid off with no real indication of how long that could last.
And that is the struggle for so many people, is that you can plan, but none of us are used to planning day to day, week by week. And when you're talking about jobs and income, really hard and struggling to make that work.
Yes, and that I think is going to be what really sets this apart from other past crises, is that degree of uncertainty. In 2008, 2009, there was, of course, uncertainty. No one could predict how long things would last. But we didn't have indefinite closures of something like the entire restaurant and hospitality sector. And one thing that we've been reading about a lot this week and hearing a lot about is, when these businesses are able to open again, the question of how many will actually be in a position to. It's not free to reopen a restaurant. You have to get your inventory back. You have to pay rent or have an arrangement with your landlord during that time. So there are costs involved with bringing these businesses back online. It's not a switch you can just flip. So I think a lot of this will go back to how long this lasts and what businesses are in a position to come back when they can.
And speaking of that, and quickly, Eli, if you could speak to the planning that you've covered over the years in the city and the region, a lot of that is on hold, and many are wondering if that can come back, what that looks like. Quickly, what are your thoughts?
Well, a lot of these plans, like the new Parks Master Plan, the Transit Plan, the whole city's development plan, all this stuff was coming together. It was supposed to be either completed or close to completed this year, but now all of a sudden we're in a different world. These efforts are on hold. And we're not necessarily planning for a booming Charlotte like we were just a few years ago. Now people are starting to wonder, when we can get back to making these plans, what kind of economy will we be in? Will we be in a situation where development is totally paused like it was in 08, 09 again? So the whole ground has really just shifted beneath everyone's feet this week and the last 2 weeks.
Absolutely. Eli, we miss you in the studios, but we always appreciate your insights. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Good luck.
Next, we have Ashley Fay of the Charlotte Business Journal. Hi, Ashley. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Suzette. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Let's start off with the fact that you talk to the business community all the time. What is their sense of our new normal?
Well, it's been a huge adjustment. I think a lot of people have just been, constantly referencing how fast everything just came to a halt. A lot of people think about the Great Recession. They think about the slowdown after 9/11. Constantly, I'm hearing everyone say, this is worse. This is much more dramatic, partly just because of the shock and how quickly everything dropped. I mean, we know unemployment is, way skyrocketed just in the last couple of days. So it's left the community reeling. Every industry has been impacted. We know hospitality and tourism has been especially hit really hard. And the recovery efforts are going to take some time, but I don't think there is an industry out there that has not been affected by this.
I did see in the headlines where Honeywell made the headlines because their executives are going to take a pay cut and they're trying to create packages for their employees' time off.
Yes. So Honeywell said this week in a memo to its employees that it would require, I believe, most, if not all employees to at least take a 2-week furlough, which a lot of companies are doing, even ones that aren't in hospitality and tourism. But the executives also said they would be taking pay cuts and reducing their bonus packages going into 2021, which I think just speaks to the gravity of the situation for sure. If a Fortune 100 like Honeywell is making such drastic measures. But we also know that Honeywell has a very robust aerospace and oil and gas industry aspect to their company. So those sectors have, of course, been very visibly and dramatically impacted.
I know that, this is springtime and the real estate agencies, this is the time when you show houses, sell houses, and that issue in particular you addressed this week.
Yes. So, with Mecklenburg County's stay-at-home order, which I know other counties have since now implemented, there's a lot of rules about what you can and cannot do. And one of those is you can't go and show homes. You can't host open houses. And you're right. This is, as everyone knows, the busy spring season for home buying and selling. And realtors are definitely feeling the pain. They're trying to, work within what they can do. They're trying to do virtual showings. They're trying to do all different kinds of things. We do know that construction is considered an essential business under the order, which home builders and developers are thankful that that's the case, but still got to, social distance, still got to follow protocol. But yeah, I was talking to someone this week who said traffic and showings this week are down up to 50%. And I expect that to just, continue now that the order is in effect.
Well, for the businesses, we're all living our lives week to week. Really hard to do that in business, really hard to forecast forward. What are you seeing in terms of that struggle?
So it's a lot of it's just a waiting game. And if anyone in business and the economy knows, uncertainty creates almost the biggest risk, and uncertainty creates almost the biggest anxiety. So not knowing when things are going to start getting back to quote unquote normal, not knowing when we're going to peak in the number of cases, not knowing when some of these orders are going to be rolled back has created a lot of anxiety. And I think we're seeing that in the stock market. We're seeing that locally with a lot of the small businesses that have said, we need relief now. We can't wait another couple weeks. We have rent due on April 1st. I've been talking to a lot of landlords and tenants who are afraid that they're not going to be able to make rent next week. So it's really just grappling about the situation again is just how quick and how dramatically everything shut down and created, hundreds of layoffs, thousands of layoffs now. And I don't see it stopping for a while yet.
And as we wrap up here, Ashley, are you seeing out in the business community sort of the resiliency and the resolve, or is it everybody is still deer in the headlights and in shock almost?
I think it's a little bit of both. So, I mean, a lot of people in the business community, especially in Charlotte, they kind of has a can-do attitude, and we're going to get through this. There's been a huge rally to raise millions of dollars with the COVID-19 relief fund by the foundation in the United Way. There's been a bunch of other efforts to help small businesses, a bunch of efforts to think about how this is going to play out long term. But I think a lot of people are still just trying to catch their breath and say, "Oh my gosh, like how am I gonna get through this?" And the sad truth of it is that a lot of businesses won't be able to make it, but the hope is that many will be able to return to work, and hopefully several weeks to a couple months from now, and they're just trying to wait it out and do what they can.
Well, as we all are, right? So
Yes,
appreciate
exactly.
your time this way. We've certainly missed you in the studio, but always
Definitely.
appreciate the information and insight. Take care.
Thanks, Suzette. I appreciate it. Thank you.
That's our show for now. We appreciate you joining us for this edition of Off the Record. I'm Suzette Ree. Until next time.
A production of PBS Charlotte.